All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the first Gumtree of Liberty Live for the new year. I'm your host Stuart, and I've got with me today Jack and CentristOzzy, my co-host, our producer Ed, and our special guest Forest Mummy, or should I say, Desert Daddy. How you all going?
Yeah, good mate.
Who's
Yourself?
first?
Good.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
good.
I thought you might start off just by introducing who you are and your journey to liberty, Forest Mummy.
Yeah. So there's a little delay, so I apologize. But yeah, so I had gotten on Twitter. I'm really a nobody, just from Colorado in the United States. And I got on Twitter at the beginning of the whole COVID stuff and was just kind of like screaming my mind out there. And I don't know what happened, but it just attracted a lot of people towards me and kind of got me more. I was always liberty minded, always was kind of like free living, don't hurt people, live, do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting people. Wasn't involved with the Libertarian Party at all or anything like that. And just getting involved with this COVID stuff, and I started losing some of my real life friends, and I wasn't allowed to do my real life things anymore. And then I started making friends through Twitter, and so like through Colorado Liberty Minds, and so we've been building this huge community out here. Everybody's super cool. I recently, as you said, I was Forest Mommy. I'm still a Forest Mommy here on YouTube and stuff, but I got my account banned off of Twitter for nudity because it's not allowed apparently. But I've used the exact same picture before for months and they didn't care. But whatever. So now I'm at the Desert Daddy for right now, and we'll see how long it lasts. A lot of people are getting pulled down, and like someone else today, a gal, she comes on my podcast. Now she can't even host spaces. Like they're just screwing with people like crazy. So that's my story, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's it seems to be happening on all sides as well. A prominent Free Assange person that I know got nicked the other day as well. So it's interesting. It's not. It seems to be all these sort of like fringe accounts but accounts that are sort of stirring up a bit of a hornet's nest, and they're the ones getting kicked off. What were the lockdowns like where you were in the States? So obviously that'll explain a bit better to us about the sort of the networking online become pretty prominent amongst a lot of people. So if you, how draconian were your lockdowns where you were?
So the initial like month in like March into April was everything was shut down. Restaurants were still kind of open, but bars, and no one was going out to bars. No one could eat at restaurants. And this was pretty much all the whole Denver metro area in Colorado. There was a few counties that weren't as draconian, but the restaurants and stuff slowly opened up in the summer of 2020. And then they shut down again towards the end of the year, shut everything down again. So you couldn't go into restaurants and all that. And then they opened, spring 2021 came around, and then they started opening things up. And then it seemed like we were kind of going on a good path. Like there was no mask mandate. There were previous mask mandates. There was statewide and countywide. And then it just happened again just recently, like in December. They were like, nope, we're doing it again, everybody. So they put more mask mandates down, even though all these people are vaccinated and whatnot. And there was a lot of restaurants and clubs. Like I haven't been dancing in forever. All the clubs went to vax passports all on their own. The government wasn't making them do it. They just started doing it on their own, which sucked. And then, now we've had another mask mandate in most of the Denver metro counties. And they extended it. Like I should be volunteering a huge event for the next 2 weeks, but they were going to make us wear masks, and I had to put my foot down because if you don't want to see my face, then I don't want to like be there. Okay, so so that's just, it's been like, it was like half bad, half good. The things I love to do, I can't go to my yoga classes anymore without being vaccinated. I can't go to the clubs, so it's just been a big shift of like, and then a lot of my friends all everything that I had previously, and they were all from alternative lifestyles too, and they still like bought into it completely. So I don't know, it's not been as bad here as it was in other states, but there's definitely enough people who want it bad and want the authoritarianism to like be more.
Because
So
so go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say for the Aussies, who is in control of Colorado and Denver? Is it a completely blue state? Is it a red state? Is it a bit of a mix? What's the dynamic over there so we can sort of get an idea?
It's very much Colorado was very much used to be very purple, very live let live. But then we started growing completely, like a ton after we legalized marijuana, which even the red people voted to legalize marijuana. So it was like, everyone's like, yeah, whatever, do it. But the cities, so Denver, Boulder, Fort Collins, and then like some of the cities in the mountains where all the celebrities are super blue, like very, very blue. But then pretty much everywhere else is red. All the rural areas are red, and like surrounding Denver and some of the other counties, it's fairly red. So our governor is blue. Governor Polis is a Democrat, but he's trying to play it off like he's a libertarian now, but he's not. But that's how it is here.
Because I am going back to the businesses enforcing the mandates. When Biden announced them, it was more like a proclamation that he was going to implement them, and I think what he was doing was he was relying on the obedience for particularly blue states, I guess, to do it without actually having mandated it. That way you can get your vaccination up high without actually, I guess, breaching the Constitution. If it breaches the Constitution, which surely it would, right? And then the court shut it down. And then I think I saw, because I was talking to a friend of mine about 2 weeks ago, a court upheld it and reinstated the mandate. So it's back to being legal. But I'm almost certain that the Supreme Court is going to hear it, I think.
Yeah, they started the Supreme Court just yesterday or the day before.
Oh, did they?
Talking about it. Yeah.
There we go.
And it's a nightmare already. Like, they didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah, I heard that one of the judges didn't know whether it was a state or federal policy to be able to bring it in or something, which is pretty interesting considering they're supposed to be the most educated judges in the whole of the country.
Trust
The
me,
whole world's a mess.
they don't know what the fuck they're doing. I can attend to that like 100% because I've had to deal with several unconstitutional laws here in just Pennsylvania alone. Like, the reason why I was kept in the hospital was due to an unconstitutional law where they can literally keep you for as long as they want under, it's called the 302 system, which is an involuntary hospital stay, which I looked it up. It's completely unconstitutional and no one's tried to sue it. And I'm going to be the first person to do it. I just need to find a libertarian lawyer.
Interesting. Yeah, she also, that Sotomayor, she also said something like she brought up bloodborne viruses, and then she like said there's 100,000 kids in the ICUs with COVID, and that's not even true. Like, it's like 300,000% more than there are. Like, just bullshit.
Well, I was looking up the statistics a couple weeks ago now, so it's already outdated. But it was like 0.0003% of kids that get it die. Like, it's more or less insignificant, and then the ones who do die are like severely impacted from birth, right?
Yeah, they like have leukemia and like major issues going on.
Yeah, and it's not really, it's COVID that's that last straw, which I'm pretty sure at that point the flu would probably kill them. So it's sort of like, I don't know, but it's a very interesting dynamic. Like, the whole world's going nuts. Yeah. The fact that the judges don't know what they're talking about is very concerning. It's very concerning,
especially on the legal side of things. Like I was saying, the bit about she wasn't sure which jurisdiction it was probably like, I'm like, isn't that your whole job?
Yeah, aren't they supposed to be prepared for the cases?
Yeah,
You'd think so.
All right, so what we'll do?
I know someone out here who became a judge, and she's like the dumbest person I know, and she became a judge. So I don't have any faith in them anymore.
When I was in jail of spring of 2021, I I heard there were people on there for misdemeanors that normally, at least in Philadelphia, when you get a misdemeanor, you're usually released almost right away, and they just make you pay a fine, which should have been for me, but they decided to keep me in jail for 7 weeks. And every judge is different. Some judges will just be like, okay, go, we're dropping the charges. They ain't that bad. You're a first timer. Other judges will just be really strict on you. This was my first time I was ever charged with anything, and my bail was $50,000. And I can tell you for a fact that Philadelphia judges are fucking idiots and completely fucking corrupt. I knew a dude who was in there for triple homicide. I'm sorry. And he had a $20,000 bail. So I don't know how the fuck they recruit judges here in the U.S., but however they're doing it, it ain't working.
Yeah, I'm not sure the process, but it really seems like the entire system's falling apart, which, depending on who you are and what your views are, is not a terrible thing. But
all right, so let's bring it back
every country's fallen a bit.
Yeah, let's bring it back a bit to acceleration. Do you want to go into your Twitter ban a bit more for us and let us know what happened, how the process works, like how your warning systems, etc., happen? You don't have to give us too much details of the exact thing, but just sort of what's happening, because like we said earlier, we're seeing a lot of people getting nuked at the moment from all sides. So it'd be interesting to hear how it all played out from someone who's been nuked, so to say.
Yeah, so it was the day after Christmas, which there was a bunch of drama on Liberty Twitter. People were doxing people on Christmas and stuff. And so that night I had a Christmas picture on my profile pic, and I was just going to change it back to my old profile pic, which I knew that you can get busted for nudity, and I actually was going to put a censored version up, but it was late at night. My eyes were tired, and I picked the wrong one. And I was up for probably an hour or two still on Twitter, and then I went to bed, and then I woke up to like a ton of texts where everyone's like, did you get banned? Did you get banned? Like everyone was texting me, and I was like, I don't even know. I just woke up. So then I like checked, and it was like, yeah, you're suspended, blah, blah. And so I had to log in on my computer, and then all it said was because of the profile picture. It just said like there's nudity or violence in your profile picture. And so I logged in on my computer, and from the computer I could appeal it. But even that process was kind of weird. But so I appealed it, and then 4 days later, they're like, nope, you don't get it back for now. So I don't know if I can appeal it again, but I don't know. I just hit 18,000 followers too. I was like so mad.
Is nudity something that is actually bannable on Twitter? Because I've always thought that they
just in the profile pic or header.
Yeah.
You can have full-on hardcore porn on Twitter. You just can't in your profile pic or header. And my picture was like an artistic. It wasn't even like porn, like it was just me sitting in the forest naked. So yeah, it kind of sucks. But a bunch of people got banned too, like right around the same time. If you followed Felix, like he got banned, and then his alt all got banned. So that's why I've made my alt like a lot like different from Forest Mommy. They'll eventually catch me, I'm sure, but anybody who was making like an alt that was similar, they were all getting banned. And like a couple of people have gotten banned recently, and they didn't give them any reasoning. They're just like, nope, you're suspended. It's like, what?
Well, I have some insight on why the alternate accounts are getting banned, and it's because they make the accounts with the same phone number or email address. So anything associated with them will also get banned, which is kind of dumb. But they also IP ban you sometimes.
It's IP. They get them through IP. I've had this experience with friends. Like I had friends, both couples, a married couple. They're both obviously they have the same IP. When the wife got banned, the husband's Twitter got restricted and then banned because they were using the same IP. Right after that, they started using VPNs, and it never happened again.
Interesting. Yeah, I figure they'll get me eventually, but whatever.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think it was we were looking. We literally, I think because it was when you guys were sleeping time. So we were looking at the different accounts to try and organise who to get on, and we clicked on yours, and I think we found it within a couple of minutes of it being banned. So it was quite interesting timing. Me and Liberty were looking for 4 people. So
yeah, we were talking about having people onto the podcast for the new year, and I literally clicked on your profile like 5 minutes after you got banned.
Yeah,
that's how quick it was.
Yeah, fuck it.
I was just sleeping peacefully. I didn't even know. Like, ridiculous.
So you said earlier that you've been organising sort of a liberty movement within the Denver, Colorado area. Do you want to explain a bit more about that and what it is you're involved in? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, so just starting out by October 2020, I had made enough friends on Twitter where there was people from Colorado following me, and I was like, you know what, screw this. I don't have any of my other friends anymore. And so I slowly started meeting people. I actually met Spirit Llama. He was the first person I met. And then we just started like getting more and more people. We did a couple like house parties. I'd invite people over to my house and just like slowly bringing more people in from the area. And all of us are like totally different, from totally different lifestyles. But we all like care that what was going on with COVID was wrong. So, and then within that, then I was like, I need to start getting more involved with, I am definitely lean more anarchist. I don't believe a government can fix anything. I don't really think anything can happen, but I was like, whatever, I'll get more involved with the Libertarian Party out here. And so I started connecting with more people through that. And half the people I'd meet, they're like, oh yeah, we follow you. You're Forest Mommy. I was like, oh, cool. So like got more involved with that, putting some energy towards that, and the Mises Caucus out here and stuff. And like, we've been doing, so there's a gal out here who started a single issue PAC, and a PAC is so you can collect money to do like legislation and stuff like that. So she started it. She's actually moving, so I'm gonna be taking over for her, and we're hoping to get it kind of on the ground running more by March, get some videos in, and it's going to be basically to help vaccine mandates against healthcare workers and against kids because of the damage it's doing to some of the kids. So that there should be some cool stuff that comes from that. And everybody I've met, like we all just like get along, and I'm throwing another party at the end of the month. And it's just been nice. It's just always nice to meet people. Like I've had my parents over with them, like they're fine with my parents and stuff. And it's just nice to have people who don't care about all the crap with the masks and all this stuff. So it's just, we have a really good community, and not all of them are even in the party or anything. Like it's just a liberty minded group, you know, like we all kind of come from different angles, and yeah, it's been great.
How's the general sentiment over there? Like depending on which news that you watch, it's either everyone's against it or everyone's for it. Like, what's the actual sentiment on the ground?
I would say in Colorado, yeah, I'd say in Colorado, they're even with the like mandates and lockdowns. Overall, I would think most people are like over it and are like aren't into it so much. In the cities, definitely more people are into it. Like even over the summer when there was no mandate, there was still a ton of people wearing masks at the grocery store and stuff. But no one's confronting anybody really, and no one's. The last mandate in my county's been on for the last 2 months now, and I haven't worn it in the grocery store. No one cares. Like no one says anything. So overall, I'd say most Coloradans are over it. There's been a couple counties that have like decentralized from bigger like public health things to be smaller, and they have no mandate. So there's a lot of like liberty minded counties coming out of it, which has been pretty cool to see. But yeah, in Colorado, it's not in the deep city. Like if you're in the city, you'll get people who are rude or whatever, but the suburbs and like kind of the rest of Colorado, like especially Colorado Springs, no one cares down there. Like that's about what it is.
What's the population level of say Denver as an example, or roughly?
I think Denver's like 3 million, and Colorado total is 5 million. I think that's maybe a little less than Denver.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
That's like Queensland in one state.
Yeah.
It's 6 million for the state.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Aussies lack that understanding. I think if you use Florida as an example, I think there's 25 million people in Florida, and 55 Floridas fit inside Australia. So it's
Denver's 700,000.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we've got 5 million in Queensland, and we're two and a half times the size of Texas. So,
Yeah,
put that in perspective.
Pennsylvania's got 12 million, but you got to keep in mind most of them are in like the city areas, and we're also a pretty big dairy producer. So if you don't find them in the cities, you'll find them working on farms. Like Philadelphia, for example, after the census, but keep in mind a lot of people didn't take it, is probably like around 3 million, even though a lot of those people who are listed don't actually live in the city. They just have properties here. Because it's, even though it's the most expensive part of the state, but you know,
So just as like a comparison. So I just looked up the comparison. So Denver's the capital, right? Or it's like the biggest city in the
Yes.
state, right? So
Yes.
700,000 people in that city. Melbourne, which is where I am, has a population of 5 million in the city, with a total of 6.6 million in the state. So it sort of gives you an idea of density of Melbourne. I'm pretty sure that New South Wales would be very similar, that the majority of the population would be in Sydney. Queensland, probably the same. It might be a bit spread out up the coast. I guarantee the WA is the same. So I think this is where the difference comes in from America and Australia, because I've had a look, because I've been following the elections for the last few years, and when I look at the election maps, it's very much red, 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 blue, red, 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 red. So there's a lot of counties that vote one way, but the cities control everything, right? But there's still massive population in these states, and just going back to the population of Colorado, which was 6 million, there's 700,000 in Denver. So the cities don't really seem like they control all that much in sort of Central America anyway. So that's why these mandates haven't really caught on in sort of Central America, as opposed to New York, where New York City is the majority of the population, or California, where the Bay Area and Los Angeles control most of the population. Do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's still enough space out here. Like everyone's still spread out, and just I think people are just like, screw you and like, leave me alone. And yeah, definitely the coast got the brunt of everything. And there's just so much more people. I mean, the whole East Coast of America, there's just so much more people on the coast there. It's crazy. So
yeah, to kind of go off of that, in Pennsylvania, like you're saying, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Harrisburg's the capital, are all blue. They're blue as fuck. Like even my county rep, who constantly gets accused of scandals and caught up in them, still gets voted in because he's blue. I know for a fact if I ran for Democrat in my area, I would be instantly in. Anywhere outside the cities is red. Like the farmlands, some of the suburbs are red because it affects them more. But because the cities have more population density, we end up getting more blue governors. And like the one we have right now, Tom Wolf, who's a fucking asshole and really should be brought down.
I think that divide's almost stark in Australia. Again, you're going to have all the cities are red for it's opposite colours. So here, red is the left, blue's the right. It's confusing. But yeah,
But
it
our
tends to be
right-wing
Labor.
party is called the Liberals as well. So nothing like confusing. Call the Conservatives Liberals, just to throw a spanner in the works.
But yeah, all our cities are red with a few exceptions. Like Toowoomba here, it's blue. Biggest inland city that isn't Canberra. I say city, 150,000 people. That's a city for Australia. Really small. But yeah, most of the coastal city areas are red, and everywhere else is blue. With a few exceptions, but it seems to be a common divide everywhere. Is that inner city lefties versus rural conservatives?
I don't even think it's the lefties thing. I think it's more social pressure, because especially in Australia, I don't know how it has been in America, but there's been so much propaganda around this whole thing, on top of the media just being like fear, 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 that people don't want to be seen as going against the grain because it's selfish, right? I feel like that's where a lot of it comes down to, that it's more social pressure than anything else, and especially in Melbourne where they put the mandates in. I am yet to meet, well, not even meet someone. I'm yet to talk to someone that I've known for a while that wasn't coerced into getting the vaccine, right? Because they're like, if you don't get it, you can't earn a living. So that was basically where they put it to the people of Melbourne. They're just like, you know, submit or you're not going to be able to make a living. You know, all your debt, your mortgage, all of it. Your kids don't care. That's sort of, and people are just sort of going along with it. I don't think people in Victoria specifically know what to do. I don't think they probably think that they can't do anything. And I hear a lot of people talking about voting, but you can't vote your way out of it. It's not how it works.
No.
So it's very interesting. So how is that? How has it been in the US propaganda wise? Like, obviously, like the presidential sort of addresses and the press conferences and stuff, that's obvious, but I'm talking like state level TV sort of ads and that sort of stuff.
It's been bad in Colorado. Like, we have a Colorado Department of Public Health, and like that's all they talk about. All they talk about is get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine. Our governor, that's all he talks about, get the vaccine, get the vaccine. So even from the public offices, they've just been pushing the vaccines. Even the mayor, like the mayor of Denver and all the mayors of the smaller towns. It's been strange out here. That's why it's been so weird in Colorado, especially. Like I said, it was such a live, let live state. And now it's just like, it's crazy that people even think that all these and the people who are in charge at the public health departments are not qualified. Like, they're not qualified people. They just went to school. They don't have qualifications to tell people what to do with their lives. And of course, they've never brought up exercise, eat right, anything like that. It's all vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. I don't watch the news out here anymore, but I know the news went full in right away, shaming anybody who went out. I remember at the very beginning, we have this local newscaster named Kyle Clark, and he's the worst. And he was shaming people and doing the whole taking pictures of people, oh my gosh, look at these people here. And it's just, yeah, it's all the propaganda. Because like I said, there's people I knew who who I thought weren't super into government, and they definitely weren't the kind of people who like being told what to do, and they just fell right in line with it. So the propaganda has been crazy. And I'm not on Facebook, and I know Facebook's been pushing a lot of propaganda too. So
yeah. Well, Instagram's getting real bad. They'll pull down anything for any reason. So it's real bad.
On the
Didn't they ban you?
Sorry,
yeah, they did. Yeah.
yeah.
I had to go back to my old account.
Yeah, things have been fucking terrible. But yeah, in Pennsylvania, first one, in Colorado, it's just as bad. The Pennsylvania Department of Health, they will, in their vaccine ads, they've straight up started trying to push it on kids. I remember I was watching TV in the hospital because I don't even watch TV anymore because it's all just bullshit, and I hate commercials. And they would have one ad with one doctor saying, "Oh, the COVID vaccine is safe for kids." Then another commercial would play, and it'd be another doctor saying the same thing. And what's actually kind of funny is almost everyone I talked to in the hospital is against it, except there's one nurse who actually tried to push it on me, and she also tried to push it on a COVID patient, threatening him, saying, "If you get the vaccine, we'll let you out early."
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there was an instance. Sorry, go on, Central.
No, yeah. Just before we go, how has it been recorded? So obviously, the systems are a bit different between here and there. We've got like a public healthcare system where health records are automatically digitally recorded anyway. So for us, everything's sort of, if you go and get the vaccine, you get like a passport check-in thing on your app that says that you're up to date with your vaccine shots, and everyone sort of gets it. How is America, or specifically Colorado, dealing with keeping track of who actually is vaccinated, who isn't? Like, how are you guys doing that?
I think there's an app. There's like a Colorado app you can get on, and then you can show that like to get into the venues and stuff. It
So
was
is that
the
a
paper
government
thing,
app,
but yeah, I
or
think
is
they
it a
developed
health
an
app?
app for it. I mean, it has to be government to some extent. You know, have their hands in on it. I don't know if it's who made it, but it's an app.
Interesting.
I didn't download it, so I don't know.
Well, if there are the QR codes in Melbourne, if you scan it, it puts the Victorian government app onto your phone.
Yeah.
So as soon as I found that out, I never scanned it again.
Yeah, well,
I'm just like, nah.
The cops in Australia, they're misusing the data anyway, so that
Well,
was
yeah,
when I
there's
got
that
in
too.
mind.
But
Yeah.
there was one instance in Northern Territory where one lady was put in the Howard Springs camp up there that was threatened with more time in the camp because she didn't want to comply with what they were saying. So they're like, huh?
Was that Haley?
Yeah. So she was saying that because she was going to, I think she was going to the laundry or something, out of her allotted time. They're like, oh, we'll make you stay here longer. Like, what? But that's not even the worst part. Like, there's the whole thing is ridiculous, and we covered the story, and we wrote an article about the three Aboriginal teenagers. They were 14, 15, and 16, or it might have been 15, 16, 17. They escaped this camp. They climbed the fence and they boogied about 4:30 in the morning, and the police basically shut down Darwin to find them. Like, and then they tested
That's
negative
crazy.
and they put them back in. Like, it's absurd.
It makes no
it's
sense.
So ridiculous.
And that makes no sense.
Yeah, and the guy that is running the Northern Territory just put the state back into lockdown. They've had one death.
Yeah, he's lost the plot.
Over 2 years. He's lost it.
He's insane. Like, you just listen to him. There was actually a really good meme going around. It's one because Trudeau in Canada has gone off rails as well. He's pretty much talking about.
He was never on them.
Yeah, but he was talking about, like, he almost alluded to it, like, it's exterminating the people that don't do what he wants them to do. But whatever his tweet comments sounded just like something Gunner would say. It's pretty scary when you sit back and you listen to them. They sound very much like a certain someone from the 30s and 40s.
Well, the French president's going ham as well. He's not happy.
And he called them non-citizens, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. He said you basically non-citizens, which is fucked. Like, imagine if that becomes the narrative.
Speaking of the French, just like them at the Battle of France, I'm gonna head out. I'll talk to you all later. Thanks for having me on.
Bye,
Ed. See ya.
So yeah.
Nice meeting you. Hopefully, I'll be on future streams where I'm actually the one editing them. So.
So yeah.
Good. I've got a great comment here from Daniel. Australians put Aboriginals in camp. That seems pretty backwards given the history. What's next? Taking unvaxxed kids, sticking them with vaxxed parents? I think that's it's a great point.
Yeah.
That happened in Canada too a lot, where they would they took Indigenous kids from their parents, and put them in schools and put them with the correct people. Like it's getting so close to that, but of course you can't compare it. But
I mean that sounds bad, but I don't think a lot of people actually realize how bad it was here. Like it was like 60 years of the Australian and British governments stealing Aboriginal children and putting them with white
it wasn't
families.
until like it's even as similar as I think we were talking about it yesterday with someone. I think it's like only 30 years ago. Certain Aboriginal people still needed passes to be able to go to certain places in the city, and we're looking at introducing passes again. Like the whole passport system to me is the scariest thing of all this.
It's a social credit system, but they were testing. They bought China's social credit system, their facial recognition, and they were testing it in Darwin. This flew all the way under the radar. They were testing the social credit system in Darwin at the same time that the last mass shooting that I'm aware of that happened in Australia happened in 2019. They were testing it at the same time, right? And like this sort of nobody cared. They're just casually buying China's despotism and testing it. And where do you think they're going to put it?
They stuck it in up north under the guise of which I even like because it was so
smart
many years
city,
ago
I think
now.
is what they called it.
The cashless welfare system that they've introduced. Like it's one of those things where it's on the surface you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So you got to keep an eye on like where the money goes because it's government payout. But when you sit back and you look at it and you go, oh, actually, you know what? That's not cool. Like, I know, well, like you can argue whether you believe in a welfare system or not, but being like then controlling that person, if you're offering that service and then you're controlling how they spend it, that's a bit like that's a step too far, really. So, and that's me coming from where I thought it was not a bad idea at the start. So, yeah, it's a slippery slope, and it starts walking towards, and then there's the voting ID that they want to bring in here as well, which normally I wasn't against voting IDs, but you start thinking now this digital passport that they want to try and bring in, everything's going to be locked to the one thing.
Yeah, so, and now if we're not vaccinated, we're not going to be able to vote.
Yeah, that's coming. I guarantee
you. Watch
this
election. 100% coming. And that's how Daniel Andrews is going to secure his victory in Victoria.
Yeah, well, they'll do it the same way they did it in Melbourne when they. So it won't be that they'll mandate that because it's illegal to say that if you're not vaccinated you can't vote. But what they can do is they say, well, all the voting booths are in this certain building. It's illegal to go into this certain building unless you're vaccinated. Yeah. So if you can't get to a booth to vote, then they haven't blocked you, but the building doesn't let you in. So
yeah,
it's
I always wanted to. Yeah, I want to start a thing where it's so disappointing because you can't sort of put in a vote of no confidence here. Like you can't do it. You have to vote, and it's the worst because I don't want to put Liberal, Labor, or Greens on the ballot at all. But because it's a preferential voting system, I vote for my minor parties and they get the votes anyway because the minor parties side with the major parties or the major parties get the votes because they don't succeed.
If you put them at the bottom, then what you're doing is you're taking away their preferencing. So unless, of course, you put the Greens or the Nationals up the top, then they'll obviously preference to a Labor or Liberal. But if you put all four of those parties down the bottom, the other parties will preference each other because that's where they get their power from then. So, there's a bit of Australian politics for you, for us.
A little bit of a sidetrack.
We've got a lot more representation in terms of parties. So I think it wasn't until 2017 I even knew the Libertarian Party existed in America. So it was always just Democrats and Conservatives over there. So yeah, for us, we've got minor parties representing lots of different factors. So,
but we've never elected a leader. There's a fun fact for you.
Well, speaking of mass shootings, we're going to talk a bit about the John Hurley shooting, which is is that in Denver? I'm pretty sure it was.
It was in Arvada, Colorado. Which is where I live, but it's a suburb of Denver. Yeah.
So a bit of a precursor.
Sure, let's jump into that. So I guess if you can give everyone a bit of a recap of what happened, because it's not covered by the media at all. Australia, we've heard nothing of, but even I just googled it before we started, and I found one article from Washington Post, which is behind a paywall, and that was all I found. The first 3 pages of Google. be completely covered
A
up.
lot of Americans didn't even know about it either. So,
Well, a lot of
um,
Americans
so
don't know about a lot of these things, like like a lot of the people killed during no knock raids. Breonna Taylor was like the first one that really came to prominence.
yep. Yeah, and then they like say they know them, and then they whatever. But all right, so I'll just dive in. So it was in Arvada, which is the downtown area of Arvada, which is like Old Town Arvada. It's only about 10 minutes from downtown Denver, so it's like a suburb, and it's like a little old town area. So there was a crazy dude. This was June 21st, 2021. There was a legitimate mass shooter, crazy dude, and he was supposedly he wanted to kill cops, and his wife or girlfriend was also worked at a bakery in this little old town area, so he was going to go like kill her and her coworkers and stuff. So the guy came out, he ambushed a cop. There was a cop there. He was a on duty cop. He was actually a cop for a middle school, so he was kind of like always at the schools, but this was in the summer, so he was on duty. And this guy came around the corner and ambushed him and shot the cop. So he dropped the cop. Then he like ran back to his car. But in the meantime, right across the street, there's an army surplus store, which I don't know if you guys have those there, but it's like they sell like army stuff, you know, and yeah. So Johnny Hurley was in the army surplus store, and he heard the shot, and he was in a t-shirt and gym shoes, and he ran. They showed that when the video eventually all came out, he ran, like he went straight towards it. He got a good, like he was hiding behind this brick thing, and the guy had run back to his car to get like another gun, and was coming back towards like where he had shot the cop, and that's when Johnny Hurley dropped him. So Johnny Hurley was not a cop. Excuse me. He was very well trained with firearms. He's part of We Are Change. So he's We Are Change Colorado. He was a huge member. Like he was a big part of it. So a lot of libertarians knew him. Adam Kokesh kind of knew him. But once he shot the guy, dropped him, and they didn't tell us this for 4 months. So I'm kind of like putting it all together, but we didn't all know all the story till 4 months later. They didn't release the rest of the videos and stuff till during the Rittenhouse trial, because they didn't want people paying attention to it. So he drops the guy, and they were like, well, so he went over to the guy to disarm his rifle, to like take the mag out and disarm it. The guy was down and dead. But right at that moment, another cop had showed up, and then they assumed Hurley was the shooter, and they shot Johnny with one shot, killed him right through his back. He had his back to him. So the guy never said like freeze, drop your weapon, nothing. He just showed up and shot him. And so then finally, so they didn't even tell us that a Good Samaritan had died till probably about 3 days after it happened. So the whole thing was that for 3 days, all they talked about was the cop that got killed, which it is very sad. He got killed, but that's all they talked about. That's all they talked about. And then finally, like when it came out that, a Good Samaritan actually was involved and got killed, it kind of, they didn't make it sound like a cop did it at first. They kind of like were making it, they weren't really saying what happened. And then for 4 months, so I don't remember when they started the Rittenhouse trial, but there's tons of videos and cameras everywhere. They knew they had all this stuff. They knew they saw what happened, but it took them 4 months or whatever to decide that they weren't going to charge the cop that shot him, even though it was very and that cop still has his job. He's still on the job, even though he's like killed like literally the best person. Those are the kind of people I want in my community, are the We Are Change people. And like Johnny was so trained, and like that whole group of people are really cool people. I've been meeting with them a little bit since then, and yeah, then they let all the video, and the DA said they're not charging the cop. He still has his job. And we find out later there's actually 3 cops all in their bulletproof vests and stuff that were in the area, and they were too scared to go out, but Johnny ran out in like a t-shirt. So it's been really sad. All his friends are really they're the most peaceful people. Like they're anarchists and We Are Change people, and they're the most peaceful people I've ever met in the life. Like full of love. We had a rally at the DA's office, and they were like, "We forgive you, blah blah blah, but we have to talk." Like they're just the most peaceful people I've ever met in my life. So he must have been I didn't know him personally. He must have been an amazing person. But yeah, no one even in America knew about it, and it's like they rioted because of the George Floyd, and everyone around the world knew about George Floyd. But here was an actual good guy who stopped an actual mass shooting, and like no one knew about it.
Did Johnny have kids as well?
No, he did not have kids.
No, didn't have family. No. Okay.
No, he wasn't married. He was like has a sister and a mom, but yeah, he wasn't married with kids or anything. I think he was like 30. He was mid-30s.
Yeah, because I remember at the start, because they left, like you said, it was difficult to find any information at the very start. So I think it was Luke Radowski who did a lot of digging and stuff. But I think because they withheld a lot of the evidence, the media specifically started trying to paint Johnny as the bad guy in it. Because I remember at the very start, they were like, "Oh, he's tied to the shooting," but they didn't talk about the fact that if it wasn't for him, then a lot of people could have died. And he basically put himself in a lot of danger just to sort of save a lot of people. So it was quite disturbing when you start seeing the information come out later about how much they made him, like, it was quite disrespectful really to him what the media sort of tried to do early on. So
yeah, it was like okay, there's all these videos. It shouldn't take this long to give us the truth of what happened, because they did say, oh, he picked up the rifle, blah blah. And it's like, okay, well then release the video, but then they didn't release it for like 4 or 5 months after, and it was obvious why they did it and when they did it, right during the Rittenhouse trial, so no one would pay attention, and no one did. Even in Colorado, people didn't know about him. They're like, who? And I'm like, this literally happened like 3 miles from me, and like it's crazy how they tried to bury it. Not like they should have been like, this is, and the cops all say like, oh, we think he is a hero. The cops are saying good things about him now, but it's like they should be like shouting that like these are the people we want in our community, but they're not.
Yeah, it was it was strange because the cover up, like if you try and step back and you look at it from it's like a completely outside perspective, it was just like it was strange that the cops went to cover it, like as shitty as it is still, like, because you don't, like, the cops should have checked before shooting and all that sort of stuff. They could have, or like still could have just went with he had the reported weapon in his hands at the time. You know what I mean? Like, you could make that argument from the cops' point of view and still come across as like, yeah, it was our mistake and we fucked up big time. But you know what I mean? Like, people could then go, okay, Johnny was obviously pulling the gun apart and making sure it was safe so no one could pick it up and shoot it. But you could go from that angle, still praise Johnny as a hero, admit that you messed up when you shot him, and like it wouldn't have been like, it's hard to say, but it wouldn't have been as bad as what they were doing, because they really tried to bury it and tried to paint it that like it just didn't make any sense to me when you start seeing what actually happened and how it sort of played out. It would have been easier for the cops just to be straight, I think, and it would have been better for the cops if they were just straight about what happened.
Did the police know him?
I don't know if like Arvada police knew him specifically, but I don't think so.
Uh,
Because you could, if they did, you could theorize.
Yeah, but the thing is that as I said, they shot him in the back while he was disarming the weapon, didn't they?
Yeah, a bit sus.
Yeah, and they didn't like, and I've even had arguments on Twitter about this where people are like, well, cops don't know, they're in the heat of the situation, blah blah blah, and it's like, it's
their job to know.
Yeah, you can still like say freeze or whatever, and so it makes people like us. So I'm like, if I'm ever in that situation, because I carry, and I'm like, I'm just gonna like lay on the ground, throw my gun, like now it's like, do we help people if we're just gonna get shot anyways? Like it really makes it hard. And Arvada has some other bad cop situations. They just like, they've been settling out of court all this money with bad cops and stuff, and it's just sad that it went how it went, and that the DA didn't want to fire the guy at least. Obviously, he's like, shouldn't be on the job,
And you would hope to think that cop is also you would hope you would think that he would be feeling pretty fucking shit about the whole thing too. Like, I'm like, surely if he's like found out afterwards that he's just made probably the biggest mistake of his career, you would think that he'd be like, oh, I need to take some time off, I'll step away from the job, because that is like, you try and look at it from every point of view, and like that'd be pretty insane. That's what, if you were involved in shooting the person who actually saved the day, like that. I can't in my own head if that was
like
me.
the good, the good person
and
who's
then take the credit for it.
Oh yeah, that to be that would be
that's the bit that gets
the spin
me
from the department though. That's what I said. Like the whole scenario itself was just like weird as like it could have been solved a lot smoother, a lot cleaner. They still like admitted the fault, but now it just looks even like 100 times worse because they, like you said, tried to claim credit for it and blame. Like it was just it was a complete shit show.
Yeah, it was just weird from the very minute it happened, because that literally that day they had this huge cop procession, and they just were like cop. They talked about cop for like 3 days straight. They just talked about this cop, blah blah blah, and like. Yeah, it really could have been bad because the whole little downtown area there has like restaurants, and there's like a splash pad. I don't know if you guys have like, fountains where kids can go play. Apparently there was going to be a bunch of kids there, and they weren't there, thank God, at the time. But like, it could have been very, very bad. Like, it's just crazy that George Floyd has statues and like no one knows Johnny Hurley. Like, it's just obvious. I mean, it's all obvious, but yeah, it's a major bummer. But he was a really super like good guy. Like, he was always volunteering with the homeless. We Are Changed does a ton of stuff out here with volunteering with the homeless. They're doing a thing tonight, which I may or may not make it, but they're doing like a 12-hour like drive for like bringing clothes in. Like, they've always worked with the homeless, and he was always anarchist and working against like kind of protesting certain things. And I guess the event tonight, it's the 8th one they've ever done, and he had been to all 7. Obviously, he's not going to be able to make this one, but he was a huge community asset, like a huge, like, the good guy,
Yeah.
What are carry laws like in Colorado?
In Colorado, you can get a permit through your county, and you have like an actual CCL, a concealed carry license. So you can do that in Colorado. You can always have one in your car. You don't need a license to have one in your car. There's a handful of counties that you can do open carry. You can't open carry in Denver, and there's a handful of cities and counties that don't allow, but there's a lot that do. Like in the rural areas, you're allowed to open carry if you want.
Is it shell issue or is it constitutional carry?
It's not. We don't have constitutional carry here yet. It'd be cool if we did. So it's still like you have to ask the government for permission to carry.
Okay.
Yeah. So can you? Obviously, flying up in this case, then gun laws are completely different over there to here. So can you explain to, if we've got Australian listeners, the difference between what constitutional carry means, the other one, and what sort of limits you have, etc.?
Yeah, so like constitutional carry, which a handful of states in America have, and a handful are trying to do it as well, is basically that you don't have to get a permit or a license to carry, and it's just the Constitution is your permit basically, and you can carry. Whereas, like I said, in Colorado, you have to like, jump a hoop, pay money, and then you get the license and carry it. But so that's the difference.
Are there restrictions on what you can buy? Like,
yeah, in Colorado there are. In Colorado there even is, and our governor's always trying to pass more gun things. There's some silly ones too. Like, there's certain mags, like we can't have like bigger mag capacities, but like I can literally order it, send it to my friend in Arizona, and then they can just mail it to me. So there's like dumb things like that. Some of the counties, like Boulder County, has some assault rifle bans and stuff, but I don't really know. And we have red flag, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's basically
Red flag laws are dumb.
anyone could call in and say you're crazy. And I understand why because there have been bad things that have happened, but like anyone could call in and say something about you, and then the government can just like come and try to take your guns, and
well,
we do have that here.
Yeah, perfect example was Timcast the other day when they swatted him. Like it doesn't even
wasn't
have to
that
be real.
crazy?
That was
That was
insane.
crazy. I hope they catch the person who did it.
But,
Well, they were saying that they could FOIA the calls and all that sort of stuff. So if they know the voice, they could easily figure it out. That'd be interesting.
so dangerous. Yeah. All right, so the gun laws.
But yeah, like
Crazy.
because it's interesting because in Australia it varies state to state, the gun laws. Like Queensland gun laws I think are the best in terms of like what you can get and how easy it is to get.
We have legal gel blasters, so that's something.
Yes, it is illegal to have airsoft rifles in Victoria, which is ridiculous.
Well, in South Australia, you have to register some Nerf guns as firearms in South Australia because Nerf guns those Nerf guns have the same firing mechanisms as gel blasters, which are illegal. So therefore, Nerf guns have to be registered under the Firearms Act as firearms, which is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And then like the rifle that I had, because it wasn't a fixed stock, it was illegal in New South Wales. Right? So because the stock could fold, it was illegal in a different state, which is ridiculous. But you have the fixed stock. I could go on about this for ages. I went on Against the Mob podcast and talked about this. But it's ridiculous. Like so with shotguns I always use as the best examples because there's technically 6 categories of firearms. There's A, B, C, D, E, and H, which is handguns. The different types of shotguns, pump action, break action, lever action, and semi-automatic, are in 4 different categories. My favorite one is that a lever action shotgun with more than 5 rounds is in the same category as semi-automatic unrestricted rifles. A lever action is in the same category as
makes so much sense. It makes sense if you don't think
unrestricted.
about it.
Yeah, unrestricted AR-15, same category as a lever action shotgun. That's the example that I use to demonstrate how dumb the laws are in Australia.
Yeah, I've been.
It also takes 18 months to get your handgun.
I mean, it's
Well, I've been someone who's been pretty pro gun control most of my life. I've always said I think is the culture thing between America and Australia in terms of
it is
like how you got. So it's not like I didn't grow up with guns. I grew up on a farm and I was shooting 22 rifles and shotguns when I was younger. But I've always been pretty pro on the gun control side because I suppose I've never really lacked being able to get access. But when you look into how the laws are set up over here, you start realizing that it's probably too far. Like even if
Probably.
you were but what I'm trying to say it from a person who would see it as pro gun control, you know, like if once you start actually looking into it, if someone looked into it, they'd be like, yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense. You could
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
So yeah, and because the culture is that you don't have guns, so you're not looking into buying a gun, so you're never looking into the laws that they've got in place, so you never actually notice the shit that they're pulling. And you go, it's not until
it's funny though, but once you have your category A and B license in Victoria, you can buy you can get your purchase permit. You go in, you apply for it, you leave, you go get lunch, you come back, you can buy your gun. So once you've got your license and you've bought your first gun, it's quite easy to stockpile weapons. In all honesty,
yeah, I've heard that.
In Victoria, it's you can buy anything from a 22 to a 50 cal as long as it's a bolt action.
Do you need to? So I think it's been a long time since I've been up, but I think it was like in order to get certain gun licenses, you need to be able to prove what you're using them for. So, like, if you're a farmer or whatever, like, so I couldn't go and
So
just go buy a 22
category
rifle.
C guns. For category C guns, you have to be a farmer, security guard, clay target shooter, or in the primary industries, so like mining and stuff. That's the only reason that you can get a
So
category C firearm.
D is the highest category, and you need to be a primary producer where you need it for like pest control, which is why you can get sort of unrestricted semi-automatic rifles for that. So if you're a primary producer, like you're a farmer or something, where your livestock is threatened by foxes or something, right? Because foxes are a massive issue here. Foxes, feral cats, feral dogs. If you're in the highlands of Victoria, Brumbies. There are heaps of issues. So people will generally buy an AR, generally, but they're completely unrestricted. So it's unrestricted magazines, unrestricted ammo, like ammo capacity, all of that. But anything else has ammo restrictions. So with the rifle that I had a 6.5 Creedmoor bolt action, which I used for long range target shooting. So when I applied for my license, I just said target shooting, right, and no questions. So when it's the category A and B licenses, it's not so strict. And when you're actually applying, they don't really check. You've just got to say, "Oh, I'm going to be shooting here." But once you get your first one, no, they're not going to ask. So the permit is just you fill in your name, you get the permit number, you give it to the gun shop, and you get your gun. So it's for all criticisms of the gun laws, it's more how the police regulate the gun laws and how when you actually get your gun license, you basically become a criminal in the eyes of the police. That's the biggest concern, and that the gun laws give them so much control. Like, I could take someone shooting at a range as a licensed gun owner, but as soon as I got home, that person can't touch my gun. That's how dumb the laws are. Like that.
So you
That's
can-
It's
sort
dumb
of-
that the government make the rules, and they're the ones who are allowed to kill people and go to war, and but they're the only people who should have guns, right? Like, just makes no sense.
Yeah, so although you can get access to firearms, there are more firearms now than there were in 1997, which was after the National Firearms Agreement was created following Port Arthur massacre, which led to the gun control, which was brought in by conservatives in 1996. The Howard government brought in by conservatives, so conservatives aren't exactly pro-gun.
It took 12 days.
So, 12 days into his
12 days to
administration
write the legislation. It took 12 days. That is
and
not a
passed
lot
easily.
of time. It was written, drafted, passed in 12 days. Sus.
So although we do have more firearms now, we also have 8 million more people. So that's almost. So I think we were at 18, 17 million before, in 1997, and then it's up to 25 million now. So the proportion of gun owners has dropped by 48%. I'm pretty sure it was in a couple of years ago, and then the proportion of households that own guns has dropped by 75%. So although we have more guns, those are only bought by pre-existing firearm owners. So it's easy to get as Jack said, it's easy to get a gun if you already own guns, but to get a gun in the first place is the hard part there. And it's they can take your guns pretty easily as well.
For any reason, basically.
Yeah.
You could post something that they didn't like on social media and they'll take your guns. That's how easy it is. And as I said before, as soon as you get a license and you start owning guns, you're a criminal in their eyes. They're just looking for a reason to take them from you. And this is why America should never get a registry, because that's the worst fucking idea anyone could ever have, especially in America. Because, like, the police are pretty malicious.
Terrible.
Would you even be able to put that in place?
That was one good thing that happened from the George Floyd protest. A lot of even more left people, they started getting armed because they were like, oh shit, like actually they'll come after anybody. They don't care. Like, so that was one good thing, that one positive happened, that like minority gun owners and the left gun owners went up like crazy. So
I'm a big proponent for arming minorities. I think every minority should own a gun. If everything's as bad as they say it is, you're an idiot for not owning a gun. That's my sort of that's my reasoning behind it. So arm the minorities. I'm all about it.
I feel like every single shooting in America leads to talks about gun control. Did you have that after the John Wayne shooting? Was there talk about gun control after that, or was it, left alone?
Not really. Only in like the major cities where they already have like strict gun laws, they were probably talking about more. But like I said, everyone else was like, oh crap, these mobs, they don't care. Like, because there's mobs, they would have like, hey, if we have a Biden sign, and they were like, they don't care. Like, so it didn't really, gun control didn't really come up after George Floyd. ACAT, everyone's like, fuck the police and all that stuff, but then it went, but then once COVID measure came in, then it's okay for cops to be down on people if they're not following the COVID rules, Of course. But
comply or die.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
It's very interesting, but it's funny because I've been on a big journey politically from when I was 18. And because I wanted to fly planes, join the military, whatever, do, same thing everyone else wants to do. Didn't do that. Ended up going to uni, biggest mistake of my life. Found politics, another mistake. Wish I was a normie. Swear to God, it would be so much easier. But it's very interesting because the police are not your friend. But there's a lot of propaganda in Australia through primary school, especially where primary and secondary school, where the police will come into class and be like, "Oh, we're your friends," right? And
to be fair with that though, the policing system style has changed a lot as well. Like, so obviously I'm a bit older than you guys, but when we were kids, it was very community based. Which I think you need to have something. Like I said, I'm not an anarchist or a libertarian, like full on libertarian. So for me, like not yet. For me, a community level based policing, which I think you would call in America sort of your local sheriff type. Like the guy that knows everyone in the town. That type thing. Community level policing was a lot stronger. Nowadays, everything's all militarized. It's like whenever you look at the cop, you don't know whether he's going to pull out a riot shield and a gun or whatever. So it's things have changed a lot, especially in the last, say, 10 years, with how the police force system is operating. Even just from booze buses that you look at how they're operating the booze buses. It's like this military operation. They've got this huge bus that goes around and they start taking people out of cars to test them and all this. It's very, like, you shouldn't drink and drive. Obviously, that's not an advocate for it, but just how they did it, how they go about operating is very militarized these days. So, yeah.
Am I correct in saying that all sheriffs... Am I correct in saying that all sheriffs in America are elected? Or is it just most of them?
Yeah, sheriffs are elective. So if there's a sheriff's office, that was an elected position, yes.
Yeah, whereas we don't have that accountability there. So all of our police are, just run-of-the-mill police. We don't have any special sheriffs who are elected or anything like that. So there's more accountability in America than there is in Australia, for the police there at least.
But they're still town and like county police, like that's county sheriff, but the town police and stuff, they're not elected. So they're still whatever. And I was going to say, even after George Floyd and everyone was all, defund the police. Well, like multiple cities in America, including Denver, got like billions of dollars to militarize the police more, even after all that. It's just like...
Biden got in and put more money in there than what old mate was doing, apparently.
It's hilarious how much. It's hilarious how much Biden has said he was going to do and then did the exact opposite. It's almost like voting for the establishment gets you what you deserve. Like it's
I don't
hilarious.
think the other guy would have been much better now, especially listening to him lately. I think what the state, you guys, you're starting to see it. If we go back into the politics side of things, you're starting to see it. Spike Cohen's doing a lot of good work in terms of getting some libertarian representation in sort of like the lower sectors. So, are you seeing that in Denver as well? Like, are you getting that sort of libertarian push in some of the sort of lower positions of government?
We haven't had a huge push yet, but we were just talking the other day. I think this next year there is going to be, especially because there are a lot of people who are like registered Republican and whatnot, but they're really pretty much libertarian, but there's just never a libertarian option. So I think this coming year there's going to be a much bigger push for it.
Because
I might run for city council, but then I'm like, there's nudes of me on the internet, so I probably shouldn't. But
That doesn't matter.
It's
Just
America.
own it. Who cares?
There
Just
was
own
a
it.
Democrat who threatened to
yeah, I
vote
would.
for
I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
Although there was a sorry, just to bring this up, there was I think it might have been a sheriff. I think it was a sheriff. Someone they called themselves a devil worshipping anarchist or something, and they they got elected into a sheriff's office or a political position.
Yeah, they were trans too, I believe.
Yeah.
Trans satanic.
Hilarious.
She ran as a Republican.
So funny. Like that's a perfect example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I was saying for a while though with the libertarian guys, you guys need to sort of drop some of the minor bullshit that's going on within the parties and stuff, because you don't, like, for the Libertarian Party to have an impact for you guys, especially, you don't need to win. You just need to get enough seats to throw a spanner in the works. Because the reason why from what we can see, it's the same here with our Liberal Labor parties. It's like one big party, the Unit Party, and the problem is because there's no, like, we get it a little bit better because the Greens obviously try to hold Labor accountable and the Nationals try and hold the Liberals accountable.
Try to.
For you,
I call them the ALNP.
Yeah. So they try to, but essentially they're all the same thing. Just some slightly extreme on the different spectrum, but in America, it's almost like the Republicans and the Democrats are like they pretend to fight each other on TV, and then when they're in the house, they're looking after each other.
Because they're the established.
Just need someone to throw a spanner in the works, and then they've got to start trying to you've got to try and then bring in a third party into the fold of their unit party, and then. So if you've got some people just digging their feet in, you're going to stop a lot of the rubbish like that. What was that omnibus bill that went through, which was 400 pages and no one read it? Like, just that sort of shenanigans, like, that shouldn't be happening. Because I was quite surprised. What was her name? MTG, that one that got kicked off Twitter as well.
I was just going to ask if you watched her when she was on Tim Cast talking about that stuff. Where she was like,
I couldn't believe
just
that.
Voting and...
Yeah, the making the people vote thing. That was and you know what? That's really base. Like, it wasn't. She didn't do anything crazy. She didn't do anything. All she did was make them do their jobs, and it pissed everyone off. And I was like, fucking good on her. Like, if you're going into politics and you see shit like that going on, where it's like 10 people voting, and it's all via like a voice vote, and so that whoever's in charge can pick the type they want anyway. That's good. Like, make these politicians who are getting paid top dollar to come back and actually do their jobs.
That's why they hate the populists and the AOCs in the major parties, because they're throwing spanners.
AOC and Ted Cruz are the same thing, if you ask me. They're just.
I mean, she's buckled a lot. She's coming around to the establishment. I think Pelosi's had a few words with her, and she's not a very strong-willed person.
Did you see?
I don't think she believes what
she was curated into the whole position. She was like, I don't know if you read the history of her, but she did like. And I know what that's like, because I've been on committees and boards, and they like curate you, and they're like, they'll pick you for these different things, and that's what AOC kind of was like the whole way.
Yeah. So I think that her and the other three, I think, have been tempered somewhat because the Democrats know what they're doing, but the Republicans kind of are used to everyone agreeing, which is why Trump kicked them in the head and why people like Marjorie Taylor Greene have caused them so much trouble. I think that's the main reason. I think the Democrats have learned how to deal with these type of people. The establishment, anyway, has learned how to deal with these people, but the Republicans still haven't, which is why they're still making trouble for them. But they'll get around to learning how to suppress them and keep them in line, or just remove them entirely. So we'll see how we go. We'll see how it goes. It'll be very interesting. The next couple of years is going to be very interesting.
That's why, like, a lot of the libertarians want to get in and tear it down. That's why I hate, because the libertarians still follow all the like political rules and stuff, and it's like, let's just get in and like just
that's
tear
the thing.
it
You
down.
don't, like I said before, you don't have to go. You don't have to win. You just got to get in and start doing little bits. It's going to be a long-term thing. Like, you're in a republic, and without completely doing a Michael Malice and destroying absolutely everything, you're only ever going to be able to, within that system, battle and bring it down closer to where you guys are and let your ideas win out. But in order to do that, you've got to be prepared to work together a bit better. The infighting that goes on is quite interesting. But yeah, you just need to get some representation in there, I reckon, and then you'll start seeing, you can start repealing some laws, you can start, pushing the constitutional carry if that's what you guys want to do. But yeah, you really just got to get that small amount of representation first, and then, which you can do at the next election. There's a few people you could headhunt, and like I know Jason is talking about running, whether he'll actually do it or not. But like, just having a big enough name at the front would be enough to gain some support, because, and you've got to battle, obviously, that, if you're voting for the third party, then you're voting for the other party crap that the Republicans and the Democrats push out. They do that here too with us. They say, if you vote minor, you're just throwing your vote away. But
good, throw it away. Stop voting. Yeah. Stop participating in the system. The Australian system needs to be burnt the fuck down.
I think the reason why it's hard in America to make any headway against the two parties is because you guys have 2 senators per state. We've got 12. So 2 senators, coincidentally, 2 major parties. So Democrats get one, then the GOP gets the second one. So there's no other seat left for the minor parties to go after, whereas in Australia, you're guaranteed to get a couple of minor parties.
Well, the problem with the US is it was never meant to be a 2-party system. Never was meant to be that. It's been perverted over the entire history of the US to become a 2-party system, because people realize that if there's 2 parties, you can control everything. So why allow minority voices in when you can just control everything and get rich?
Can a politician switch parties, like, while they're elected in America?
It's happened
after they're
7 or 8
times.
After they're elected. So once they've been elected as a Republican, can they just turn and become a Democrat?
Justin and Marsh went.
I mean, they kind of do technically, just not by word. But...
So yeah, okay. Because I was just wondering then, because obviously, like you said, there's the issue with the system is that a lot, like we said, with the lady who, the anarchist Satanist who got voted in, a lot of people just vote R or vote D and don't even look at it. So can you, even if you have to, stealth some libertarians in and then just get them to change once they're in? Like,
that sheriff ran under.
It shouldn't be that hard, because there's that truck driver that won that election, and he spent, what was it, $150 on his campaign, and he beat the Democrat. Like that, yeah. I was just like, so he's definitely not a Republican, but yeah.
Well, that's the other problem.
Yeah, that's what the people need to find, is the small races where no one's really signed up. They just, because that's how, I think it was Pennsylvania or somewhere where, like, the libertarians were just signing up because there was no one else. So then they automatically were getting the seats and stuff. So we do need to do more of that all over.
Yeah.
Well, that trans Satanist anarchist ran under the GOP ticket. So that's how they got in it, because they ran under the GOP. They didn't run as libertarian, even though they're an anarchist citizens, and they got in because they were on the GOP ticket.
But this is what because this is Yeah, so that's what I was trying to understand, is whether you can just swap parties or whatever, because you've got the likes of Rand Paul that's in there now, who is probably he's libertarian pretty much, isn't he? He's not really a full-on Republican, is he?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he obviously has some of his dad's ideas in him, but like I said, when they get into those positions at that level, it's hard to tell like what they're really doing. He was doing libertarian things by at least calling out Fauci, like he was at least, I don't know if that's libertarian or just doing what's right, but I would say him and Massey are probably on that way.
Well, Rand Paul said he's less libertarian than his father. He said he's like in the middle, because he said he's not as,
but his dad's full-on
as his father
libertarian, though, isn't he?
Yes.
So I'm like, even just a little bit, probably more than the most average person. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see if the Libertarian Party can get their shit together and get someone like a Rand Paul to jump over, because at least, because you'll find, I suppose, a lot of people who won't vote red or blue just because they're red or blue. It's when you listen. So obviously, we watch a lot of what you guys are going through over there, but there's a lot of people that would what do they say, blue no matter who, and all that sort of stuff. And I wonder if that dynamic in your system is basically because it's only two-party representation and people you know what I mean?
And people aren't involved. They don't read into things. They're not even that involved. Like, I have clients whose businesses got destroyed in the initial shutdown, and they still were voting Biden, even though he was saying we're going to shut down again and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, they don't know. Like, they're just like, I didn't even want to be into politics this much, but you have to be at this day and age, I feel like. And a lot of people just don't. They're part of a team, and that's all they got to think about.
Yeah. But the one thing everyone on both sides, I think, especially most of us plebs, have in common is that we're pretty much over the establishment. Left, right, center.
Yeah.
They're all just taking the piss at the moment.
It's because they can. People are standing by and watching it happen and not doing anything. There's a small amount of people talking about it, and all the apathetic normies are just like, shut up, just comply. And that's a massive problem here. Easier. I don't know how it is in America, like for apathy towards the state, but in Australia it's very apathetic. Everyone's just like, just fuck off. I'll just tick my box and live my life. That's sort of the attitude from a vast majority of people.
It is changing, though. I think that attitude is changing. I think a lot more people are rising up to what's going on. So I think with the loss of jobs has been a big one. Where people, if you don't do something, you have to, if you don't get this jab, you can't work. I think is something that's waking up. I don't like using the term waking up, but waking up a lot of people. So there is movement, there's change. I know some of it, like I said, some of our minor parties are gaining a lot of traction at the moment. So people are looking outside the two system to try and that's on the left too. There's there's a few people that I know that are I would consider a sure thing Labor voter who are now saying vote minor. To put the majors last and vote for a minor party that's actually believes in what you believe in. So the potential's there for change via voting without having to go the full anarchist route. So we'll see how we go at the next election. Otherwise,
can't vote your way out of tyranny.
Yeah.
I just don't think that we can vote our way out of what's happening or what's coming.
Well, they control the voting systems and they count it. At least out here in America, they literally control it all. So.
Well, interestingly, Queensland's voting system is done through Dominion.
Yeah, they just brought it in this year.
Oh.
Well, that was so the third election, which was early last year, that was done whenever it was. 2020 was done through Dominion.
So
that was
they
really
haven't for
interesting to
2020.
see.
I thought they brought it in. I thought they were bringing it in now. I didn't know they already brought it in.
No, we've already had it for our last state election, 2020.
Oh,
They used
interesting.
November 2020. So at the exact same time as the US election, we had our state election, and they used Dominion. And Labor won that
Oh.
election with an extra. They picked up 4 seats. And the problem is that
Yeah,
we're
but to be
only
fair,
have.
that was going to happen. I think in Queensland anyway. I don't think. I don't, and the Liberals have had a pretty piss poor run in terms.
The
of
Liberals should never be in
states.
power ever again.
Well, you just
Like,
look at who they put up. For
They're
the state
actually
elections.
fucking useless.
Yeah. Don't
But
both
so is
sides
Labor.
of it.
So
Yeah.
this is the problem. Like, because especially in Victoria, right? We have Daniel Andrews or a rat. That's
that
the
guy.
options. Yeah, Matthew Guy.
Yeah,
He's a
like, didn't
fuckwit.
even-
He's an absolute moron, and nobody likes him. So we are essentially a one-party state. The Liberal Democrats are the opposition party at this point, which is
they
our
have 2
libertarians.
members.
Yeah, and they are essentially our opposition party right now. That our
they're-
right-wing Conservative Party is not even in the picture in Victoria.
Yeah, so the Liberal Democrats Party is our version, the closest thing we've got to the LP. So
They
still
used to
not
be
quite
super
LP,
big
but-
L. Yeah, they used to
Yeah.
be super big L, and then they changed all their policies.
Wow, yeah, there's still some in there still, but we'll see how they go.
It's very
Anyway, I
interesting.
thought you've lost. Oh no, he's back now.
He's back.
I'm back. The Australian internet cut out on me. It's hopeless. The internet is here.
You mentioned Dominion software and Queensland elections, and all of a sudden you disappear.
Yeah, immediately.
Gotta love that.
Coincidence?
Yeah. Well, on that positive note, we're nearing the end anyway. So, should we round it up and get Forest Mummy? You want to fill us in for where we can follow your stuff? If anyone wants to follow on.
Yeah, so on Twitter right now, I'm at the Desert Daddy. That's my name right now, Desert Daddy. And yeah, all I have, and then I have a YouTube, which it's like Forest Mommy. It's pretty easy to search, I'm pretty sure. So that's all I have right now. I'm kind of lazy.
I'll link all that.
I put out too much craziness on Twitter. So, thank you.
It's all good fun.
Well, thanks for joining us for our first stream
Yes.
of the new year.
Thank you for having me on. I love
No
those
worries.
fun talk. Listen, I could just listen to you guys forever. So it's all good.
Well, that's good news.
Yes. All right, I'll
We'll
finish
have
up
to-
there.
Yep. I think we're done.
Thank you.